Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Central Kentucky. This is Sandra Leslie White coming to you from WJMM Studios, just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. Shouting out to all of you around the country, WJMM.com and Facebook. We're not live on Facebook this morning because this show, it skipped the broadcast for some reason. Sometimes Facebook does that. So I'm going to record this for you today. So anyway, the message today was shame to glory. Yesterday we talked about our glory being turned into shame. If you missed that show, you might want to pick it up on my Facebook page, Sandra Leslie White Ministries Facebook page. We talked about this out of the context of Hosea, which of course you know I'm in and been in for some time now, teaching through the book of Hosea on lifting the veil. We're in Hosea 4, verses 6 and 7. Going to focus on this idea of glory in verse 7 today. So let's go into the New American Standard Version. Hosea 4, 6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I will also reject you from being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of your God, I will also forget your children. The more they multiplied, the more they sinned against me. I will change their glory into shame. Okay, if you're just tuning in, this is Sandra Leslie White, and looking at Hosea and the relevance of Hosea for us today. So I wanted to refer to an article that I saw online on MSNBC, which was a scathing article regarding our Attorney General's comments over the last couple of days regarding the moral depravity, destruction of our nation. So Bill Barr was very outward and outspoken regarding this. So he said this, and I quote, "We see the growing ascendancy of secularism and the doctrine of moral relativism," he said. "Basically, every measure of this social pathology continues to gain ground." He described several social issues as, quote, "consequences of this moral upheaval," end quote. But then again, he goes, "Along with the wreckage of the family, we are seeing record levels of depression and mental illness, dispirited young people, soaring suicide rates, increasing numbers of angry and alienated young males, an increase in senseless violence, and a deadly drug epidemic." He added, "This is not decay. This is organized destruction. Secularists and their allies have marshaled all the forces of mass communication, popular culture, the entertainment industry, and academia in an unremitting assault on religion and traditional values." Again, this is Bill Barr, our Attorney General, speaking to a group on, I believe, just on Sunday perhaps, but it hit the news certainly on Monday. And I was picking up on this and wanted to address it in the context of our message today, turning our shame into glory. So where am I going with that? You know, he talks about this is not just a moral decay of our nation, but it is organized destruction. So we know that as believers, that Jesus came to give us life and life more abundantly. That's juxtaposed to Satan came to rob, steal, and destroy. So his organized destruction is to rob, steal, and destroy. So when you look at our nation, you look at organized destruction, yes, I could see where secularism has had its way, but I've seen a deeper issue of how Satan is having his way with the believers even in our country today. So I want to speak to us today, God's people today, how I spoke about this glory that God says in verse 7 of chapter 4 of Hosea. will be changed into shame. So any glory there in the Old Testament context has to do with primarily in the physical realm with wealth, with any prosperity or recognition or fame, anything that has to do, and primarily for the Hebrew people in the day of Hosea's penning this prophecy. The Hebrew people were looking to the Canaanites, the Canaanite gods, for their prosperity, for the answers to their problems of the day, to the fertility gods, particularly in the temple. Remember those prostitutes, male and female, where Gomer, the wife of this holy Hosea the prophet, perhaps came from. He was commanded by Yahweh to marry a wife of harlotry because the land commits flagrant harlotry. That's Hosea chapter 1. So we know that this great metaphor is going on between Hosea and being married to a wayward wife and God being betrothed to a wayward people. And he is doing all that he can to warn them about their coming destruction, whether it was organized or not. It was coming. And we know this because the fall of Jerusalem is impending in time to come. So the primary messages of the prophets, even the major and minor, were to warn God's people of their sure destruction. So it seems to me that when we look at the New Testament, we talk about our glory, meaning anything that we have accomplished will be turned to shame if it's not in the center of the will and the ways of Yahweh. There's nothing wrong with wealth. There's nothing wrong with prosperity. If we are a conduit for good on the earth, then there is a will and a way for God to bless us financially as a conduit, as a vessel for that to flow through to the needs of people around the world. So first and foremost, we have to look at our own lives to what kind of glory in our own lives could be turned to shame. What kind of glory, what kind of weightiness, what kind of fame, what kind of fortune, what kind of doing our things our own way are really leading to destruction. I mean, that's his real goal here. He wants to keep us from destruction. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Hosea 4:6. Knowledge of God, knowledge of who he really is, knowledge of his ways with his people, his will, his perfect will, wonderful will for your life and for mine. Outside of that, we're self-destructive. So when we look at the New Testament application, I find fascinating. I'm much more comfortable with the glory of Jesus, aren't you? I mean, I didn't really think about my own glory, but that made me really think. So now we look at the New Testament word glory, and when it appears in John chapter 1, I think it's important for us to understand its message. So here we go. John chapter 1, I'm going to go ahead and read 14 to 18. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, glory as of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me has a higher rank than I, for he existed before me. For of his fullness we have all received, and grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth were realized through Jesus Christ. No man has seen God at any time. The only begotten God, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has explained him. So this glory is a different word from glory in the Old Testament. This glory is a Greek word, doxa, and it comes to us in the context of a divine manifestation from deep within. In other words, it's the essence of who the glory manifests itself within. So listen to this word from the New Testament Dictionary by Zodiades, my favorite Greek and Hebrew scholar. Doxon, braces, as which is excellent in the divine nature, coinciding with his self-revelation. So this revelation, this fact that Jesus was sent to explain God, he was sent to the earth to explain him, and he contains, manifests inherently, is glory. And it goes on to say this. More specifically, doxa means not the outward glorious appearance, attracting attention to the person or the thing itself, but that glory shown from within, reflecting in the appearance, which attracts attention. So this is the light within, this countenance that we are to carry as followers of Christ. What is the great mystery? Christ in us, the hope of glory. So we actually are to manifest his glory, his presence deep within. And it seems to me that if we are not filled with grace and truth, we are not explaining God on the earth. We are not carrying Christ within us. We're being affected by the gods of this world, lowercase g. Perhaps it's the secularism that Barr is talking about. That we are being so affected by the culture, by moral relativism, that we do not carry this divine presence of Christ, this light to the world of his holiness, his purity, his purpose for people to destroy the works of the devil in their lives, to take them from